Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Q&A session for our upcoming video course, The 7 Steps to Embody the Gifts of Your Sensitivity. This is a 7-week training to understand your emotional brain, navigate overwhelm, and flourish as a highly sensitive person, or HSP as it's called. I'm Ann Patricio, and it's my pleasure to be here to host this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Julie Bjelland and address questions about her 7-week video course, 7 Steps to Embody the Gifts of Your Sensitivity, which begins Tuesday, August 13th. Now, if you're unable to join us live for this course, you can still participate in it, and I'll be explaining more about that later. First, I'd like to introduce my guest. Julie Bjelland is a psychotherapist, author, and leader in the field of high sensitivity, and she's helped thousands of highly sensitive people, or HSPs, around the world. Julie's developed proprietary tools and techniques to help reduce the challenges and increase the positives that HSPs experience on a daily basis. I've just so enjoyed working with Julie over these last several weeks in bringing her course to you, and it's just my honor to be here with this wonderful, wonderful being. In just a few moments, we're going to open up for your questions for Julie, but first, I welcome her to this session, and we're going to begin with her leading us in an opening practice. Welcome, Julie. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm just really excited about you guys joining today, and that we're going to be able to teach you all about the trait of high sensitivity. I also have the trait of high sensitivity, and it's just really my mission to help you all reduce the challenges so that you can really access all those amazing gifts that are much needed in the world. And we need you in the world to be thriving at your best. So that's what I'm here for. Would you like me to do the practice now?
That would be wonderful. Thanks, Julie.
Okay, sure. Would you like me to do the like the breath technique or the self-compassion one? Do you have a preference of which one we might start with?
I defer to you. Whatever you sense would be a good opening for us today. Either one would be great.
Okay, well, we did do the breath practice in the webinar that we did, so maybe it's a good idea to talk a little bit about a self-compassion technique. So this has really been adapted from Kristen Neff, who studies self-compassion, and I've kind of adapted it for the sensitive person. And one of the reasons this is such an incredibly powerful tool to have as an HSP is because while we tend to be some of the most compassionate people out there for others, we tend to lack self-compassion. We tend to be really hard on ourselves. And I consider self-compassion to be like armor. It's like a protective armor. It protects you in the world as a sensitive person, because if something's gone wrong, you've made a mistake, you're getting hard on yourself about something, and if you start practicing self-compassion, you actually can activate certain centers in the brain that are calming. And so this is one of the many brain training skills that I teach, because I find it incredible that we can actually have some control over what we're activating in the brain. And so when we're activating those calming centers, we're deactivating the stress centers. So as part of the practice, if you can pull up, and for those of you that are listening, pull up something in your mind or memory that's happened recently that maybe you were kind of hard on yourself about. And you can start with putting your hand here. This activates propriocenters, and those are calming centers, similar to like when a baby is swaddled. So it's got 3 steps. The first step is to name the emotion that you're having. And sometimes we can find it difficult to find the words for an emotion when we're feeling really strongly about something. But what's exciting about that is just finding the words has a way of activating that more cognitive center of your brain that's going to really support you in that moment. So maybe you're thinking, I'm feeling kind of emotional about something. Maybe I'm feeling guilty, or I'm feeling sad, or whatever emotion that you have. Just kind of pull that up into your mind and find those words. Okay. Then that second step is we're going to normalize and validate those emotions. This is incredibly important for HSPs because many of us have learned, we've lived in a lifetime of maybe not feeling so validated or normal for what we experience, being that this is just 20% of the population that has this trait. We often do experience things in a different way than the majority of people around us. So we really want to kind of say things like, it makes sense that I'm feeling this way. That's a great way to begin a piece of, of validation. And you might normalize it by saying other HSPs likely experience these kinds of strong emotions too. So now you're normalizing it. And in that third step, we will move into asking ourselves what we might need in that moment. What do I need in this moment? Maybe it's something as simple as I need a break. I need to go get myself some food or something to drink, a glass of water. Maybe I need to journal. Maybe I need to talk to somebody. Maybe I need a hug. So this is a way of really going down and asking yourself what you need and finding it in that moment. Now, this is something that's skill building in the brain, meaning the more you practice it, the better you get at it, the better your brain gets at it too. And again, if you're activating those calming centers, you're deactivating those stress centers. And so it's an incredibly powerful technique. Keep practicing it daily until you get better and better at it. So that's a little snippet of one of the brain training skills. And I was really fun to hear from you guys after the webinar that I did because so many of you shared that you tried the breath technique that I taught you. Somebody said they tried it at work when they were really nervous about something and it really helped. So we're learning a lot about the brain and what we can do to have a little bit more control over our experiences just to kind of soothe our systems. So that's just kind of a quick thing to practice. I hope you guys will practice that today.
Thank you so much, Julie. Appreciate it. I want to let everyone know that while you might be experiencing a little instability in our video, the audio should be stable and solid, okay? So we'll spend the rest of our time together exploring your questions for Julie in preparation for her upcoming video course, 7 Steps to Embody the Gifts of Your Sensitivity. And this begins on Tuesday, August the 13th. I'd really love you to go over to the website, giftsofyoursensitivity.com, to learn more about the 7-week course, and you'll also find a link to register, giftsofyoursensitivity.com. Now let's get started. If you have a question for Julie, you can type it in and I'll be happy to read it out. We're going to begin with a question that many, many people sent in. We heard from Michelle and Lynn and Lee and others on the topic of how deeply impacted by the news and violence and pain that they're experiencing and seeing in their day-to-day lives. One person even shared that she cries every day from the extreme violence and pain in the world. And while these people say that they are trying to control their consumption of the media, they also share that violence seems like it can't really be ignored. And is there anything that you can say to support them and how they can work with that overwhelm?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a great question as a sensitive person to explore. And I also understand that feeling a lot too. I think as sensitive people, I sometimes describe it as almost like having your nerve endings exposed. I mean, you really are absorbing so many things in the world, good and bad. And the problem is that if we are kind of off center, we're already feeling quite depleted in life, and then you get some of the negative stuff absorbed, it's even harder. So a big part of the practice is to get yourself aligned in a really centered space through a lot of the tools that we'll be teaching in this course. That's something that helps a lot. I cannot stress enough what a difference it makes. I was somebody that felt buried by the negativity and the sadness and tragedy as well. And so that's one piece of it, is that it's in a way getting our whole being stronger in a sense, so that we are able to handle wounding in general. And I think as sensitive people, we tend to get emotionally wounded, and we have to treat that as a real thing for our experiences. I think that we also do need to limit the depth at which we dive into something. If we're feeling quite off center or unbalanced to start with, then maybe we're going to want to just look at it you have to be careful about how much you're absorbing. So maybe at times I will just look at headlines so that I understand what's going on in the world. But if I'm not in a place to absorb completely the depth of the story, I have to be careful about that, or it's going to really knock me off center. And that's not going to help me, my family, the people around me. I think that you can turn some of that pain and wounding into action as well. If you are in a balanced space, you can be somebody that makes a difference. And I completely believe that HSPs are those people. That's part of my mission about getting you guys into a place that's really thriving, because then you're out making the world a better place. I also think you need to balance what you take in. There's a lot of wonderful things happening in the world as well, and a lot of really good, kind actions happening. And the way that our brains are set up, that you need to counter one negative with 3 to 5 positives. So if you do experience something that's really difficult and negative, try to counter that with at least 3 to 5, and we're talking about, and that's a lot, 3 to 5 positives. That's not something we naturally do because the brain has what's called a negativity bias, and that was part of how we evolved as a species, just to protect ourselves from danger. But you have to really work in a conscious way. Luckily, we have more advancements in certain parts of our brain, more activation in certain parts of our brain that bring up a level of awareness that can guide us to do things like that. So take in the positive, take in the good, seek it out. Spend time in nature, really take in the beauty of nature around you, the beauty and gratitude in your life. These things are going to help you counter that. So if you think about it as almost like being a tube, if your negative tube gets too full and it's just filled up and your positive tube is too empty, that's where you get that imbalance and can't take that in as much. So that's a lot of my training is about really filling up that positive tank so that we can handle the things that are going on that are difficult in the world. And it's our responsibility to do that, because we will be able to make a difference in the world if we are thriving. And I wouldn't be able to be doing any of this stuff to help HSPs if I didn't do my own work on some of this stuff. So I hope that helps. And it's something we're definitely going to talk more about in the course as well.
Thanks, Julie. I think it is so inspiring, really, and comforting to know that you're in front of us speaking about this and have dealt with all that many of the listeners and viewers are experiencing for themselves. So thank you. Marie is asking, how do you define what is a highly sensitive person?
Well, that's also a great question. So Dr. Elaine Aron was really the pioneer researcher of this trait back in the 90s. She came out and started coining the term highly sensitive person. That's what we've been calling HSP. And the scientific name for it is sensory processing sensitivity. It is not a disorder. It is an innate trait that about 20% of the population has. This trait evolved as a survival strategy of the population. There was a group of people, us, the 20%, that had a different experience in the world. We even have brain differences that are going to be really interesting to share with you guys in the course, and that's something we'll go into in a deeper way. But what's important to understand is that you're valuable and needed in the world, and there are times when we don't feel that so much, or we don't feel so supported as sensitive people, because the 80% of the population doesn't have this trait. So we might feel different. I might feel misunderstood, but at the same time, you've got amazing gifts within you. You have the ability to read micro expressions that 80% of the population misses. So you're creative, you're kind, you're one of the people that if somebody's in need, you're out there to help and support them. Sometimes I think about what it was like, when this evolved and the times that maybe we were living out on the land in the past in our tribes. It was the HSPs who knew, they could tell if they could trust another tribe. They had that extra information. They knew where it was a good place to find food and mates, they were some of the spiritual leaders, some of the healers. And I think many of us as HSPs are healers and teachers and guides in lots of ways. So my mission has really been about how do we reduce the challenges that come with being sensitive in such a busy, sort of chaotic modern world, so that you can reach down in there and get all those gifts out, because there are so many. And that's one of my favorite things to do in the whole world is to watch an HSP start to bloom and thrive, because I go out and I see you going out into the world and doing something, to make it better in some way, helping people in the world. That's just who you are. So hopefully you're going to, I think everyone that spends time with me can tell my passion for this trait and tell my positivity about this trait, because I see it every day in the clients and students I work with, that you are special, you are needed, and we want to help you really access those gifts. So that's a little quick piece. I'll say a couple things. It's equal in gender. And about 70% of us are introverts, and they think about 30% are extroverts. So it's not actually the same thing as introversion, but the majority of us are introverts. So a little tip of information for you, and we'll be going a lot deeper into the trait and what it means, and to learn about yourself within it too.
Great. So we have a question about, you speak about working with HSPs to retrain the brain, which is really exciting. Can you say a bit more about the science behind the trait?
Yes, I'm excited about the fact that we do have research, Dr. Elaine Aron's research, and actually several people are doing research along with some of my research as well. And there are particular brain differences that we experience. Certain types of activations in our brain are more than in the majority of the population. And it's really exciting to recognize that this is a scientifically proven trait. I think that has been a big part of my mission, is to let people know that this is scientifically proven, because we want doctors and psychologists and people to really take this trait for real. This is a real thing. We will see differences that we want to explore, even in the medical side of being an HSP, in the education side, and really just kind of thriving in general in life. Being able to know about this trait is incredibly important to advocate for your needs in general, and to make sure you're getting the right types of support for you and your children. We even have, this really excites me, that we have research that shows that highly sensitive children who are given the right types of support are actually less likely to experience anxiety and depression. And I think that's so important to understand, because if we're not given the right type of support as a sensitive person, a sensitive child, we're more likely to experience the challenges of anxiety and depression. And that's really setting a child up for a lot of challenges in life. So it's really exciting to me when I see parents learning about this trait and wanting to know more, because oftentimes they are an HSP themselves and they recognize it in a child. So that's really exciting. So it's important, and there's a lot of good information out there now to share with the community and the medical community, education community, and even companies harnessing the gifts of their HSP employees, looking at a different form of a different type of workplace that's better supportive of the sensitive. These are all things that I'm really passionate about, teaching and sharing with the community.
Thanks so much. Janine is asking, is HSP hereditary?
So it is an innate trait. It is something that you're born with, and that most people, it's really interesting, because as I was doing my research of the trait over these years, most people, I could probably say everyone, has found that they have a family member that is. And it's really interesting, because it does show up in different ways in different people, depending on your experiences in life, your childhood, things like that. So that's something to note, is that it is not a disorder. It is not a diagnosable disorder. It is an innate trait. So that's important to distinguish and to understand that it's part of how you're born.
That's great. We've had several people ask Julie about any relation to people that are considered very creative, or they've used the term empaths. Can you speak about those other terms that people use in relation to defining themselves?
Sure. Yeah, I actually think that some of the best artists and musicians and creators in the world are sensitive people. That's a very common aspect of our trait, to be in tune with our creative side very deeply. Although it's interesting when you think about creativity, when you're under stress, creativity is one of the first things to go. But I can always tell when an HSP is starting to get trained with some of these techniques, because they'll share like, wow, my creative side is coming back. And that's exciting. And in terms of I get asked this a lot, the difference between HSP and empath. And as I was saying before, I've really stayed in the lane of science. And since the trait of high sensitivity has been scientifically proven at this point, I've really wanted to stay in that lane, because as I was saying, I want it to be taken seriously in the medical community, education community, et cetera. So because empath hasn't yet been sort of scientifically proven, I think it's difficult to compare the two. So that's been something that has been hard for me to compare the two, because I'm really sticking with science at this point, just to try to get this message as a real thing, I would love to see this in psychology books in colleges. I would love to see this in medical textbooks, that we're really understanding that this is a real thing, and that it's important to understand the differences if you are an HSP, how you experience the world, to be able to advocate for yourself with your doctor and things like that. And it's exciting because we actually, in Module 6, we talked to Dr. Julia Hipp, who's a naturopathic doctor. And I'm really excited about this discussion, because she's actually going to be sharing with us some really interesting information about the sensitive system, and how and why we're impacted by the things that do impact us in the world, and medically as well. So that's going to be a really fascinating discussion. I'm really excited to share with you guys.
So Alice and Cheryl and Marguerite, and probably others as well, are asking for some support around dealing with people, loved ones who are going through negative moods and emotions. For example, a husband who has a mental illness, or people that are putting out a lot of negative mood and emotion, and just how HSPs can navigate that.
Yeah, that's a good one too. We're actually going to spend a whole week talking about kind of protecting and preserving our energy in general. And I think as sensitive people, it can be difficult to be in a space with somebody who does have that kind of radius of negativity around them, or difficulties. Again, it's almost like we're absorbing, and we have more activation in the brain mirror neuron system. That means we literally start firing some of the same neurons as somebody that we're observing. So that can make it even more difficult if you're starting to do that. So there's techniques that we have to learn that sort of put a little bit of a space between you and the other person, rather than having this merging happening. That's important, and that's a skill that we're going to be teaching in the course, because it's such an important thing. I had to learn that as well, that otherwise I was absorbing everything. And also to start thinking about, like, if you have 100 points of energy for the day, where are they going? And many times HSPs are such givers that they're giving up so much to help others, to be involved in everything that's around them, but then we're getting depleted, and we're not able to use points and energy in the areas that we need to, like to support our own systems and our families and things like that. So we're going to be learning about that in the course as a particular difference as a sensitive person. How do we protect that energy and preserve that and create that ability to have that separate space? So we're actually going to be spending a lot of time discussing that and developing that ability. In general, I'm going to be giving what I like to call templates to HSPs who join this training. And what that is we develop customized ways of you experiencing the world that's just easier for you, and that even after the course, you know how to make these templates, how to care for your sensitive systems. We need more downtime than 80% of the people. So we really have to create what I like to call customized self-care and self-love plans to be able to be that whole being. And in order to learn that, it changes you completely, because I definitely was somebody that was really buried by that. And sensitivity is also in a spectrum. So there's some of us that are way up there, like me. I'm way up there, and there's some that, medium and low. So we actually have different spectrums of experiences, even as sensitive people. And those of us that are way up high like that, like I am, and many of you are, it's even more challenging. So that's part of my excitement about this program, as well as to teach you what I know works, what I do, and what I've been doing with my students and clients over the years to really help support that sensitive system so that you can be balanced and well and centered and have full access to everything that you need to access within you.
So Carolyn, and we've also had others ask for some support around the trait in relation to other people, loved ones. How do I help my spouse accept and appreciate my sensitivity, or working with parents or siblings in relation to this trait?
Yeah, I'm also really glad we're talking about that, because that comes up a lot with my clients as well and students. And one of the things that you're going to find, and this happens with anybody that takes a course with me or spends time with me as a client or anything like that, if they've been exposed to my passion, what's going to happen is that you yourself are going to start really getting to know yourself in a deep way, deeper than you've ever understood yourself before. And with that comes a sense of self-acceptance. Also, it's really a powerful experience to be in a group of HSPs. That's something that's shown up every time I've done a course, is this experience of like, wow, there's other people like me, and they live as I do. They have the same needs I have. So what comes out of that is you really do start accepting yourself and your experiences. And that's the first step, to be able to, if you want somebody else to accept you and your needs, then it needs to start with you accepting your needs and who you are. And then it's transformational, because you come from a place of, hey, I want to share this information with you so that you'll better understand me and my needs. And it doesn't come from a place of shame, as if there's something wrong with you. So any of you that have and I used to too. I actually used to be somebody that thought my sensitivities were the worst thing about me. And I get shocked that I've transformed so much, because it's the exact opposite now, that I'm very excited that they're part of my gifts. And you're going to reach that space too, that when you start to transform and really realize that this is such a beautiful trait, and who you are as a sensitive being is such a beautiful being, you're going to be able to share that with the people around you. And I've seen people talk about that with either it's themselves and maybe in their relationship or their friends, or maybe it's a parent that needs to explain to the other family members, or even teachers about their child. Really come from a place of feeling good about yourself. And when you emulate that, then that's something that they receive. And when you think about it, the people who really care about you, they want you to be your best. And if you're really specifically able to share, hey, these are the things that make me feel my best, and these are my needs, they're going to want that for you. And they're going to see the difference. So when you're taking that break and you're doing the right amount of downtime for you, you're going to show up in the family and your relationships totally different. You're going to be more present. You're going to be happier, more joyful, just calmer, more balanced. They're going to want that for you. And so that's where we start. And it becomes a very natural experience when you reach that level within yourself to embrace this part of you, and to ask those in your life to embrace it as well, and to understand you. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was reading through different comments on my sensitivity quiz, somebody made a comment about when they were a child, their parents made them wear this really scratchy wool sweater. And no matter how much they complained about the sweater being too scratchy and really hot, bothering them, the parents were like, they didn't take it seriously, and they forced them to wear this sweater. And that might sound small in some ways, but it's really big in other ways, because that's an example of not supporting the sensitive child. And what we need to do is recognize that this is a real thing. And if you're sensitive and the wool sweater is scratching you, that's a real thing. And so that's part of it too, is just to understand that your experiences. And I love seeing the comments. I mean, so many people have said that about that they feel like I've been using words to describe them in ways they've never heard before. And to feel that normalization and validation it's incredibly life-changing, and you will receive that back.
So we're here with Julie Bjelland, getting really excited about her course, 7 Steps to Embody the Gifts of Your Sensitivity, which begins on Tuesday, August 13th. So please go over to giftsofyoursensitivity.com for all the details and an option to register. We'd love to have you join us. So Julie, what can you say to the participants who do join you on this course, and what they can expect from this 7 weeks with you?
Well, it's going to be transformational, for one thing. You're going to be able to move into a space that really understands your experience in the world, understands how to take care of yourself to be your best. And also sharing it with other HSPs, as I was saying before, is just a really beautiful experience. Because of course, if we're 20%, we're used to being surrounded by the 80% that are different than our experiences, that are living in a different way and experiencing the world differently. So it's really powerful to spend time, even in an environment like through video or audio or however people are going to be experiencing the course. When you get to hear other HSPs' experiences and stories, you're going to be having so many experiences where you're like, oh my gosh, that's like me. Wow, they experienced that like me. That's something that's shown up and in such a powerful way. And I am so excited to bring you guys on this journey with me over the 7 weeks, because what's going to happen at the end is you're going to know how to be that balanced, strong self. And I know so many of you want to accomplish big things in the world, whether it's through healing or teaching or helping people. And that's exactly what's going to happen. This is going to be a launching point for you when you reach the end of this, that you can be that person that goes out and does those things. And I'm excited about that, because it's like a domino impact on the world. And as we were talking about the tragedy going on and things that are difficult, you are somebody that can make a difference in the world, but you have to be your balanced, calm, centered self to do it. And for HSPs, if our brains the emotional part of our brain is too activated, it makes the cognitive brain kind of go to sleep. And that's when we start losing access to a lot of the things that we need, even memory and facts and rational thought and the ability to know how to take care of yourself when you need it. All of that's coming from the cognitive brain. So we're going to be learning techniques that are almost like having a button in your brain to turn back on your cognitive side. That's the side that's going to really support your needs, that would be able to say, hey, I need this break, or I need to talk through something that's bothering me. I need to clear out and process. You're taking in so much in the world as a sensitive person, and it's such an important piece to learn how to process all of that. And that's what we're going to be teaching you. And it's just the most beautiful, exciting experience to get to witness that with each other and to cheer each other on. And I think you're going to feel it's a very supported, loving, kind space, that it's pretty special. And you talked about the studies that have shown that children that are supported with tools and techniques from a young age really don't have the anxiety that others have, which is such an exciting message. I'm curious how much practice people need to do, and what you see in terms of their response when they start doing these practices and exercises and tools that you'll be teaching. Do they notice
pretty quick response. What's recommended by you in terms of that?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the brain in general. So I bring what I've learned about the brain into the program and kind of filtering it through the HSP experience. And it only takes about 2 or 3 weeks to grow a new neural sprout in the brain. And we can actually start growing that by some of the things that we're going to be learning about, some of the techniques we're going to be practicing. So people start realizing that within just a few weeks, they start feeling better. They start having more energy. They feel less reactionary. And a lot of times that neural sprout that I was talking about is like this ability to go from, I'm having this strong reaction, whether it be physical or emotional, and I can't even respond to it other than maybe even having a meltdown. And we see that with children and adults. We can experience that. To being able to use these tools to be able to go into what I call a pause, reflect, and respond ability. And that's huge. That's huge for your relationships, your relationship building, for your family health, all of it. To be able to respond instead of react means it's traveled through that cognitive part of your brain, and that's what we want. Because I know I was somebody that used to have so many meltdowns, emotional, and also in physical health it shows up too. Lots of physical health issues are coming into this population because we do have too much activation in certain stress centers of our brain that are releasing all those stress hormones and causing toxins to build up and things like that. So these are ways for you to clear that out. Almost think of the nervous system as like a container. And if it's too filled up with stuff that you have to process as a sensitive person, because imagine a sensitive person might have like 100 cups of stuff dumped into that nervous system container that we need to process, and 80% might just have a few cups. So that's one reason right there why we need to do things differently to care for ourselves and to be able to process all of that. Because if that container is too full, our body is not able to process the toxins and the stress that we're experiencing. And that's where we see those high levels. We sometimes see panic attacks, anxiety, depression, lots of things like that. We'll see misdiagnosis also because of maybe your doctor might not know about the trait. So things like that are going to be really important to understand within yourself. And I have people that have come to me that for years they've been trying to work on their anxiety, for example. And when they start to learn these particular techniques, within weeks, they're feeling better. So that's exciting to me. And I've seen that over and over again. I've experienced that myself. And again, I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff if I was myself pre-training. So I kind of call it well, that's what a lot of my stuff is about, brain training. So even just being a trained HSP, you're going to be a trained HSP by the time you complete this program. And these tools and techniques, they stick with you for your lifetime. And they're things that you can teach your teens and your children as well, because I get really excited about that when a sensitive parent starts to share some of these techniques with their children, and they see results really quickly as well. Because if you see anxiety in a child, we really need to look at the parents, because almost always you will see anxiety in a parent, and then that child is, if you think about the brain mirror neuron system, kind of experiencing that right back. So the more calm you are, and the more you're able to align in that centering place, then you're going to emulate that and mirror that to your child, and that's going to show up right away as making things better for them as well.
Great. So we're definitely going to take some more questions, but before we do, I want to give a few details about 7 steps to embody the gifts of your sensitivity. So as you can tell from listening to Julie, it's going to be a life-changing 7 weeks with her, where you'll start to see your gifts that are hidden within the sensitivity. The 7-week course will take place on Tuesdays at 12 noon Pacific, starting on August the 13th. Now, if for any reason you're unable to join us live, don't worry, you won't miss the teachings. We make it really easy. You'll receive audio and video replays, transcripts, and any handouts through our course homepage, which is our virtual virtual classroom. And also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses. In this case, it's through August the 27th in this case, to make sure that you absolutely love the course. And as an added bonus to it, we welcome all participants to join us on a private Facebook community group, and that will allow you to stay connected with one another. And everyone who registers receives this extensive Gifts of Your Sensitivity bonus collection. And this includes a video teaching from Julie called Recognizing High Sensitivity in Infants and Children. Also, 5 stages of HSP empowerment from surviving to thriving as a highly sensitive person. This is a PDF excerpt from Julie Bjelland's book, The Empowered Highly Sensitive Person. And Understanding the Stressed HSP Brain. This is also a PDF from Julie, from Brain Training for the Highly Sensitive Person, her book. And when you register by midnight Pacific tonight, August the 6th, you will receive the following, and that is menopausal symptoms and the HSP. Julie mentioned this, the naturopathic doctor, Julia Hipp. It was a video dialogue that Julie and Dr. Julia did together. So that is for those of you that know you want to jump in with us by tonight, August the 6th. So Teresa is asking, when HSPs are not understood and helped to thrive, are they at risk for developing multiple chemical sensitivity or other medical issues that might arise from not processed toxins, improperly processed toxins in the body, or from pollution and toxins in our environment?
Yes, and that's actually going to be an interesting conversation that we have with Dr. Julia Hipp about why that is. And it has to do with that container I was talking about of the nervous system. If that's too full, then the body can't process everything that it needs to process. And that's why I find it fascinating to note that when you're under, high stress, for example, you'll probably notice that your immune system has weakened and your ability to, you actually might feel more sensitive, and sensitivity, like the challenges of sensitivity. For example, if I'm really highly stressed or I've got too much going on that I haven't processed what's in my nervous system container, I'm going to start noticing that lights actually seem too bright to me, or the texture of a bedding can be bothersome when it wasn't bothersome when I felt centered and grounded. And I find that fascinating, that the things that impact you the most, as well as things like food sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, things like that, if your nervous system is too overloaded, it cannot process all of that. In addition to that, if your brain is sending signals to release adrenaline over and over again and stress hormones, you're also weakening your body's ability to fight things off. Like when I was a kid, I got sick all the time. And I thought I was just this, I had almost like a narrative that there was something wrong with me. I would catch everything that was going on around me, because at that time we didn't know about the trait, and my parents didn't know how to support me within it. I had one rule as a child: I couldn't spend the night 2 nights in a row with a friend, even if I was having fun, because I would get sick. I didn't know how to manage my overloaded nervous system. So one of the things that's really exciting after talking to Dr. Julia is that we do have some control over that we can strengthen our immune system, we can lower our sensitivities. And in general, HSPs have this more activation in the insula part of the brain too, which means we have a lot of consciousness about our systems. And you can tell, like if you are in a balanced place and then maybe you've eaten something that bothered your system, or you were exposed to something in your system that you notice that, oh, something's gone wrong. So a lot of HSPs talk about that. They know what are the things that bother them and their systems and weaken their systems. So what's really exciting to me about that is that you can strengthen it. that the skills that we're going to be teaching in this program are also part of improving your health. And that's a big thing for many of us. And I know a lot of HSPs experience challenges too as they get older, and sometimes feel like, I've heard a lot of HSPs say that they feel like their sensitivity has gotten worse as they've gotten older. Part of that is that buildup in that nervous system container. So we're going to teach you how to keep that drained so that your body has the strongest ability to process the toxins and different things that you're getting exposed to, and how to best care for your health. And we're seeing chronic conditions actually get minimized with that. So that's a very exciting to me that that's a possibility, because I'm really, it's important for all of us to be our healthiest. And I know even me as personally, that's something that's really supported my system to understand all of this.
And Julie, what impact are you seeing social media and electronics having on HSPs, and really everyone for that matter? And any recommendations around that?
Yes, I want you guys to turn your notifications off on your phones. Because I want to say an example of every time you hear, a text, something that's pinging you that you have to look at on your phone or your devices, your brain is going into to-do mode. And what happens is, if we're in constant to-do mode, we're building up excess stuff in that nervous system container. And that's part of what I was saying. So if you are too, and that's the thing that's different, like even before we had devices and stuff, I can remember if you're waiting in line or sitting at a bus stop or something, you were just sitting there. Maybe you were people watching, maybe you were processing things that have happened throughout the day, and you had time to process all of that. But these days, with this constant access to, we have 5 minutes, what do? We pick up our phone or we get on our computer on social media. And so our brain is not having that quiet downtime that it needs. And we're really suggesting up to 2 hours a day of downtime, so that your brain has a chance to process everything you need to. And I'm going to talk specifically about how to use that downtime in the most ideal way in the program too for you, that allows you to really empty out that nervous system container so that your body can be its strongest. So definitely giving yourself a break from devices. And maybe, like for me, I might only have like my partner and my children, for example, there. Texts might go through and alert me, but that's it. I won't have every single email alert me, because that's too much for the sensitive system. You need to have a break. So give yourself some of those breaks. And downtime doesn't mean device time. So that means nature time, for example, really giving yourself a time to be still and to rest and restore.
So Ezra is saying hello to Julie and everyone, and our highly sensitive people, mainly highly evolved and spiritual beings. I think they're speaking more to those real gifts. So if you can speak to the gifts.
I think in many ways that we have both the highest challenges as well as the highest gifts. That's been my experience with a trait. And I think that there are such amazing possibilities in HSPs really rising to a place that they can truly thrive. And it excites me to think about that we could get HSPs into positions that really make a difference in the world, and to find ways that support that. Because I personally do believe that these gifts are enormous and incredible and powerful and so needed in the world. And I believe that if we lift off that layer, because I think that the gifts are oftentimes buried underneath a layer of challenge. For example, if I'm feeling like I can barely get through the day in survival mode, I'm not going to be able to give my gifts to the world. I'm just trying to get through the day. And I know a lot of you out there are like that. Maybe you're working, your parents, you have so much to do and to accomplish, and you can't get it all done. And you're not even able to truly know yourself and what you offer the world. But there might be that hint inside of you that kind of knows that you've got something special. And so that's what's exciting to me, is we're going to lift off that layer of overwhelm so that you can go down in there and access those gifts. And that's what you're going to see. And that's something that's really exciting to me.
So we have a couple of people asking, how do I honor my sensitivities without feeling left out? Movies, concerts, other things like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I can give an example of, like my partner loves to go to certain music concerts and stuff. And if there's things that you want to, you can still do a lot of the things that you want to do. You just need to prep for those things a little bit more if you happen to be something that's really highly sensitive. So for me, if I want to go do something like that, I want to make sure that I'm going into it rested, because if I'm going into it depleted, it's going to be a lot harder. And I actually carry around earplugs with me at all times. I love those little silicone ones that you can place in your ears, and you can actually decide like how much to stick them in or not, so that you can mute sounds. You can actually turn off sounds in lots of ways if you're really pushing them in harder, but you can also mute sounds so that I could enjoy some of the things I want to enjoy. I just went on a trip recently, and there were different things that, maybe we were on this like boat for a while, and then the loudspeaker was just blaring, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I didn't have my earplugs, that would have taken up a lot of my energy points for the day. But because I'm sort of prepped for stuff like that, it's so easy to pull them out and stick them in my ears, and then I'm good. I can experience those things. So you find adaptations that work for you, and you also want to, like I said, going into it rested, and then following it, giving yourself times of recovery as well. So while you might not be somebody that can be in a crowd for 3 days with no breaks, you're going to be somebody that you're so much more present in the world and taking in so many things. Remember that. Remember I talked about that 100 cups of stuff. You're actually experiencing the world in a very profound way. You're noticing details 80% of the population misses. So we have trade-offs with it. While you need to give yourselves more downtime and rest in between busy activities or crowds or loud noises, things like that, you're also gifted with so much. Spend time looking at a sunset, a sunrise, beautiful trees and birds, and really filling up that positive tank with the beautiful things that are around you, the things that you can feel a lot of gratitude for. If you're really sitting in gratitude, you're again lighting up positive centers in your brain and deactivating some of those more stress centers. So there's a lot of things that you can do that make it easier, and we're going to talk about all of that so that you can enjoy your life and to really thrive.
So the tools and all that you're sharing seems to benefit people living in our modern day world. So does someone need to have this trait to benefit from your course?
Well, that's a great question. I've had some people ask me, it's like, do you think that this would help me understand, my partner, my child, my coworker, things like that? I think that there is a lot of benefit in everyone understanding this trait. And it was really fun to hear from some HSPs who watched my webinar that we did recently. And they were saying, like, I watched it with my husband, and, for 26 years, he didn't understand me. And he watched that with me, and he literally said, wow, because he was like, I feel like I understand you now. And I think that's exciting. So to me, I think the more people that understand this trait, the better. So I would encourage everyone to learn about this. If you're an educator, you're a medical practitioner, you're in psychology, so both mental and medical health, I think that there's so much benefit to understanding this trait. And I think that everyone, there's 1.4 billion of us in the world, so everybody knows an HSP. Everybody has somebody in their family or in their coworkers or someone around them that has this trait, and it's going to help you understand them a lot and to really be able to have a much more rewarding relationship.
Great. So I know that you see many private HSP clients in your practice, and just share with us what you're really excited to share in this group course that's coming up. What are you most looking forward to?
Well, one of my favorite things always when working with HSPs is to start watching you guys transform and start to thrive, and hearing about, like, the stories about, oh my gosh, I I didn't have anxiety about this when I always did, and I used this tool and it worked, and I was able to do this. I got this job. I could start this business. I started this nonprofit. I've always wanted to be a healer, but I felt like I couldn't do it before, but now I can. Or, my child is improving, that they're doing better, or my health is improving. I mean, it's just so rewarding. Like, I just feel so much gratitude that I get to experience this. And that's just been my mission, is to really move an HSP from just trying to get through the day in survival mode into thriving, into soaring. I think that it is the most beautiful experience to witness that, because you are the ones who make the world a better place. Your kindness, your compassion for others, your empathy, your caring, your courteous, all of those things are more available to the world. And it's like a positive domino effect all the way across the globe to experience this. And I love working with people globally, all over the world, because we have such similar experiences. So that is for sure something that I love the most.
That's great. So this has just been a wonderful hour with Julie. I want to thank everyone for being with us today and for bringing so many wonderful questions forward. 7 Steps to Embody the Gifts of Your Sensitivity begins Tuesday, August the 13th. Please go over to giftsofyoursensitivity.com. You can read all about the details of each module, as well as find a link to register. And remember that if you do so by midnight tonight, August the 6th, you'll receive that special bonus of a video dialogue between Julie and naturopathic doctor Julia Hipp, related to menopausal symptoms and the HSP. I saw a couple questions come on related to that, and you'll especially love that piece on menopause and HSPs. Julie, I'm passing it over to you for final words to our listeners before we close today.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being here, you guys. I think you're already starting something beautiful by even being present for this. And I'm really excited for you to come join me in the class, and so that I can teach you all these things that I know work, that I've been developing and using for years with HSPs, because you are going to make the world a better place, and your kindness can get spread further when you are taken care of in the ways that you need to be taken care of. So we're going to teach you that. And I'm just really excited to get to know you guys and to share everything with you and spend time with you, and to have you all just bloom in the ways that you are meant to bloom in the world. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Julie, for your gift. It's just so obvious that you're bringing something really special to everyone, HSPs and otherwise, to learn about this trait. So thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And on behalf of all of us here at the Shift Network, I wish you well, and we look forward to having you on this course or with us in the future. Be well.